I've noticed a couple of comments recently about cranial sacral therapy and referring to it as pseudoscience. So I Googled it and up pops Wikipedia saying that cranial sacral therapy is a pseudoscience and its practice has been characterized as quackery. So there's a couple of comments on this. We stand on two legs, one leg of science, one leg of experience. They're both essential and important. If you try and do without one, quite quickly you'll fall over. So science, we depend on science for medicine, sending people to the moon and using our phone. It's a very, very important part of everyday life. And science is very good at showing what we do know and also pointing to what we don't know and yet has to be proved or tested, because there's a hell of a lot out there that we still have to understand. When it comes to human experience, if you unplug everything, switch everything off, sit down, close your eyes, you're left with human experience. You're left with how the body feels, the mind, all the various things going on inside. And what matters there are how you feel, your thoughts, your emotions. We can go through amazing experiences of falling in love, being in awe with the beauty of the world, or the pain of finding out that your partner's having a relationship with someone else. There's endless parts of human experience that we can get through, and it's very much part of being alive. So when you start working with people and you start putting hands on, you become aware of all sorts of different things. So if you give a cranial session, very often you can lie there and you can feel like one leg is longer than the other. You know that your legs are the same length, but the feeling changes. And very often one leg can feel like it's floaty or longer than the other, or you can feel like you've got a big head and a small body. You can feel floaty. This is not because you're going mad, it's because the internal ability to feel what's going on constantly shifts. And we can have a fixed idea of how we feel, but actually when you close your eyes and you look at the mind or feel the body, quite often things change. So proving that scientifically is almost impossible because things shift and change. So if I squeeze my hand and say I can feel my hand, it's not really very easy to prove that scientifically because it's very subjective. If I hurt my hand or my hand goes into shock and feels numb, I may not feel it. Sometimes I can feel it very clearly, other times it's a bit vague and patchy. And if I try and be scientific about that, it's tracking something that's constantly shifting a bit. And things in the body can change a lot. So proving body or internal experience scientifically is very, very difficult. And we have to come back to what people report or what people say. So if I lie down and have a cranial session and one leg feels longer than the other, or I feel like my head is lower than my feet, or I feel like my body's rolling over, I have to say that, and the person has to write that down, and that's all we have to prove that has happened. You can't prove that scientifically. But if you come along and say that's quackery, then you're just denying human experience. You have to come back to what you're aware of and what you can feel, and experience is constantly shifting. So as cranial sacral therapists, we put hands on and we feel what's going on in the body. We don't manipulate. We tune in and feel what's happening. So I'm very good, I'm arrogant enough to say so, at feeling the buzzy charge in somebody's nervous system. So I can tell if somebody's really buzzy and activated or if they're very calm and smooth and settled. And I can feel locally if that's the case in different parts of the body. So if I work with tinnitus, for example, I spend a lot of time around here, hang out with the buzzy charge and wait until it dissipates. And often people say, oh, the intensity's gone or that's quietened down. And that's something that I can palpate. And it happens often enough in my clinical practice for this to be of use for working with people with tinnitus. But I have no ability to sense cancer. There are certain things I just would not be able to feel. Even if somebody breaks a bone, I could feel the shock and the trauma, or it may feel very spaced out and numb, but I wouldn't be able to describe exactly where the fracture is. That I have my limitations. Other people are very, very good at feeling muscles and bones and viscera, doing their things. I mean, each practitioner is different and they have a different perspective on somebody's body. So when it says medical research has found no good evidence that either cranial sacral therapy confers any health benefit, and practitioners produce conflicting and mutually exclusive diagnoses of some patients, this is just not true. We all have many cases of people getting better. The most important thing is that you feel the benefits. If you don't feel the benefit, then don't go. It's as simple as that. They're not always benefits, but very often there are benefits. Some people it works very, very well. Other people it works less well. But if you have different practitioners taking up contact and focusing on one body, they will find different things because they are different perspectives. They have different abilities, different viewpoints, different skills. And so there's no reason why a human being, a sentient human being, should feel the same thing as another one. There may be certain resonances, or two similar practitioners can feel something similar in the person lying on the couch. But we're not X-rays or robots. We are constantly shifting places of awareness with thoughts, feelings, and things. The whole thing's shifting the whole time. So no surprises there that two different people find two different things. I mean, hopefully that's fairly obvious. Saying that this is quackery is defamation. There are a couple of examples of people who've maybe not taken up cranial sacral therapy because of this information. So in the definition of defamation, it's the act of communicating false statements about a person that injure the reputation of that person. So saying these things about cranial sacral therapy, describing it as quackery and bogus, it's hysterical. What needs to happen is the people who've had therapy to say, this is what happened to me, this is what I've experienced, and then we can use that as evidence. But because we're therapists helping people get better or helping people digest and process things, it's not ethical of us to say, please, can you tell us how you're affected by this, because it influences them and then it's using them for science or for proving to other people, which puts a spin on it, and that's not good therapy. You need to hold the space as a therapist, keep it clear and safe for your practitioners. So there's a huge bank of case histories. People who've worked for thousands of hours over the years have many hundreds and thousands of positive case studies saying, gosh, this really helped. But it's confidential information. But I just want to put this out there just to say, just because it's confidential, it doesn't mean it doesn't happen. So, as therapists, we have our hands tied by confidentiality. But putting out this kind of information is harmful. It stops people from getting help. And there's just one incredibly simple solution to this. And that is, if you are interested in cranial work, if you go to the Cranial Sacral Therapy Association of your country and read about it and read case histories and you learn about how it works, then you may be inspired to go and try it out. If you try it out and you have a huge life-changing response like I did, cranial sacral therapy helped my tinnitus more than anything. And I never relaxed before I had cranial sacral therapy. It helped ground me. It helped process undigested life experience. and it helped me find peace and a feeling of being settled for the first time ever in my life. I'm always going to be indebted to cranial sacral therapy for really radically helping my life and boosting my health massively. So try it out for yourself. If it doesn't work for you, the worst that can happen is that you'll just feel a bit relaxed. You will have lied down for an hour. Hopefully the experience with the person is pleasant, but it doesn't cut the mustard, and you think, well, that was all right, but not for me. And you keep on looking and you find something that does work with you. Some people like deep tissue massage. Other people like me who are very sensitive prefer non-manipulative therapies that help open the system up and process in a much gentler, deeper way. When it says the evidence base for cranial sacral therapy is sparse and lacks a demonstrated biologically plausible mechanism, in the absence of rigorous, well-designed, randomized controlled trials, it is a pseudoscience. The evidence is in every practitioner's confidential bank of case studies. We are private practitioners, so our practice runs on people benefiting, coming back for more because they clearly benefit from it. We're not funded or subsidized, so if it doesn't work, no clients. Simple as that. Simple market forces there. Randomized controlled trials put a spin on therapy. Having somebody in a white coat with a board or lots of questionnaires to be filled in afterwards, it does actually put a spin on the session. And personally, if I want to get help for some private health issue, I want to be assured that the space is confidential and that the practitioner is helping me and there are no other agendas around. This is this healthy practice. So there isn't much evidence because therapists work confidentially, and invasive control of therapy is not appropriate. So what we do have is supervision. We are supervised to make sure that the practitioners are delivering the highest quality of care to the client. And we also belong to a professional body. In Britain, we have the Cranial Sacral Therapy Association, which promotes cranial sacral therapy. It creates information about the work for people. It ensures good practice, and it regulates the quality of training in the training schools. We have to have high standards of anatomy, physiology, and knowledge that backs up our work. So when it says here that the therapy was unregulated and lacked either a defined training program or the oversight of a professional body, that's just not true. Today, there are professional bodies. There are very, very good standards in training colleges, and therapists have supervision. Any responsible therapist will have a supervisor to help them keep a broader perspective on the work. And quite often you might have a peer group of like-minded practitioners who help each other learn and develop and make sure you're doing good work. The simple answer to all of this stuff, I don't know if it is defamation, if any legal people can maybe put some comments here, because I have direct experience of people maybe not coming for treatment because of negative and faulty information here, quite sort of destructive information. I think the best thing is for you to try it and see if it works for you. If it doesn't, then carry on looking. But until we develop machines that are sensitive enough to sense what happens when you're working cranially with people, until we have enough evidence-based therapies, which is tricky because it's invasive and it goes into a very personal space with the clients. In the meantime, we have to go on hearsay and what people report about their own experiences. So if it's an expensive sleep and doesn't really do much, move on. If it's life-changing, massively improves your symptoms and helps you become very grounded and clear, fantastic. Go for it. Enjoy. I wish you a wonderful process with your therapist. If you are heady and you like looking at evidence, the reason there's not much evidence is because this is firmly on the foot, standing on the foot of experience. Science is great, and so is experience. Experience is what we all have. So come back to your own experience, come back to your own awareness, and rather than being mental, thinking about thoughts about X, Y, and Z, that mental heady stuff is not going to cut the mustard. What you need is stuff that gets into the experience and helps you shift and change and feel better. So I just wanted to speak to this Wikipedia as it is right now, which reads like a bit of a witch hunt. I mean, bogus, quackery, pseudoscience. This is the kind of society we live in at the moment. And I'll finish on one thing. What I love about craniosacral therapy is that when you work with kids especially, they'd say, why is my head orange? I've got all this purple light here. And did you see that bright blue purple flash just then? When the mind goes calm and clear, when you relax, you can start to really experience so much more inside the body and around the body. When you open up and sense shifts happening on lots of different layers, it's just so fantastic and so interesting. Sciencism, this mental heady, if you can't prove it, it's useless, shuts things down and makes everything very flat. Human experience, getting in touch with passion, with feelings, with experience, with emotions, all sorts of things going on the side, can really come alive massively, and it's amazing what can happen. So I wish you all well. If you don't like craniosacral therapy, that's fine, move on. If you're interested in it, and especially if you're sensitive and curious, you could try it out. And if it works for you, fantastic. I hope it helps you as much as it does me.